Serious, those of you who worked undercover, what is the most taboo thing you witnessed, but could not intervene as to not blow your cover? Worked as a ghost passenger for an airline. Basically I flew around and graded flight attendants' performance. While still parked at the gate with the door open, one flight attendant began berating passengers who were using their smartphones, which was completely permitted at the gate. She threatened to have the person in front of me thrown off the plane if she didn't put hers away. She also threatened me. After we left the gate and were taxiing to the runway, I looked back to see her sitting in her jump seat using her phone. Took a photo of it and included that in my report. She initially denied using the phone and claimed I was being unruly on the aircraft. After she saw the photo, she changed her tune. How do you even get a job being a ghost passenger? I was hired as a flight attendant and was later promoted to the position of check flight attendant, which includes limited supervisory positions including ghost rides. I did most my ghost rides after being promoted to instructor. I worked as a secret shopper for a while for a small store. The most egregious thing I found were employees would hide inventory if they knew a sale was coming up. I'd also go in and ask questions about what equipment I should use just to test their general knowledge. Most failed, but they were young kids getting paid sheets, so I felt bad squealing on them. I also forgot to add that I had to put up with being hit on by teenagers and creepy older guys. I had to play along and see if they knew their sheet despite throwing terrible game. I work as a researcher studying illegal wildlife trade. In markets, I have seen critically endangered animals being sold openly for pretty low prices. I've also seen plenty of animals dead or dying in these markets with no food or water in the baking sun. But worse than that, I have friends who have had to watch slow lorises having their teeth pulled out with nail clippers and not been able to do anything. I used to investigate insurance fraud. The one thing I saw that made me the maddest was when I was working in the rundown area near the Philly Zoo and saw a strung out mother walking with her toddler and jerking his arm and screaming at him for not keeping up with her quick walking pace. The kid was not even 2 years old. I really wanted to get out of the car. The funniest one was where I had to go undercover in a bar to investigate this one person. You ever see the Stallone movie Over the Top? Yeah. That's pretty much what this guy ended up doing right on the bar. Right in front of my hidden camera. And looking direct into my camera lens. It was awesome. The arm wrestling match went on 4 minutes and this by a guy to hurt to work. At times it was very entertaining to work undercover. Was secret shopping at a high-end restaurant. Around $100 per plate. The busser came over and refilled my water glass that I had already drank out of and overfilled it. So he poured part back in the pitcher from my glass and proceeded to refill everyone else at the table from the same pitcher. I really wanted to throw a fit, but could only include it in my report. Hey. I used to be a busser in a high-priced restaurant. One time I was working a double hungover and overfilled someone's glass. But I didn't dump it back in the pitcher. I just kept pouring as it overflowed onto the table. Muttering, "Oh my. Oh no. That's not good." I worked for an armored car service for a while as an undercover guard. When a place had a lot of money or if it was a risky area, 2 plainclothes guards would arrive before the truck. I would scout the place and outside to make sure the uniformed guys could get in and out safe. We wore a color of the day and the local cops knew who we were, as did the uniformed guards. It was a pretty easy job and I only once waved off a pickup because of a bunch of Latin kings sitting on benches out front. I hung out a while to see what was going on and hoping they would leave so we could make the pickup. As I sat on a bus bench across the road, I watched one of the guys take out his needlepoint. I never would think that a gang member would tote his needlepoint to a stick-up job. Edit only the top paragraph showed up. I guess I ducked up format or something. I'm not good on my phone. I once took my vehicle to an independent shop for routine maintenance. I said I was dropping it off for as long as it might take as I was going to take a long trip the following month. I sat across the street in a diner eating soup and drinking coffee. I got a call that my vehicle needed about $4,500 worth of work an hour and a half later. It never left the parking spot. I told them I didn't want anything done. They said it was half apart already. Duck you Firestone. I am an assistant service manager at a dealership. That Firestone was turned into a parking lot. When I worked QA for a video game publisher, they had me work an E3 as a secret player. Basically I got to play new games for that publisher and act like they were amazing in front of press. While I was taking a break I saw one of the producers hooking up with a booth babe. He didn't recognize me, but I knew he was married and had a kid on the way. I didn't say shit. He got laid off when the rest of us did about a year later. But that's just kinda how E3 goes. I am so late to this party. But here it goes. I'm a TV producer. I was working on a popular documentary a while ago. We were following a woman who was addicted to heroin and had resorted to prostitution in order to make money to support her habits. One day, a friend of hers got thrown into jail. She decided she needed to work really hard to bail them out. So she called her friend who owned a crack house that he let girls like her turn tricks in at about $10 a pop. To answer Arp's question, I witnessed this girl share needles with many people and watched as John after John came into the house and disappeared into the bedroom with her for a little bit. I am a private investigator, contracted by government to check massage shops to see if they are soliciting. I usually get sent to shops which have had multiple complaints and an investigation is in its final stages and they need evidence to support their case. So, I go to one place. Everything seems normal except for being asked to strip bare for an oil massage. Eventually I am asked to flip over. Therapist without asking just starts rubbing some gel on my parts. At this point, I am obligated to refuse and finish the session. I ask her to stop but halfway through the sentence I am hit with the most intense pain. Turns out, she was new and was unaware that alcohol gel is not the same as massage oil. Long story short, manager was convicted of coercing staff on the basis of their visas being revoked if they didn't comply. And I had to stand in court and tell the events of that day. I was running a wire. We were looking to arrest a guy who beat a 2-year-old so bad she had broken femurs. We wired up mom and had her go to the boyfriend's house and try and get him to confess. Mom started out great. Led the boyfriend along and started to ducking blow him. He then ducked her. The man who beat her daughter so bad she was life-lighted. She ducked him on wire. I was punching my dashboard and wishing I could arrest her as well. It was awful. From 2007 through 2008 I worked on a smuggling interdiction task force. My team dealt with human trafficking. My job was all bullshit and I regret that we couldn't really do anything to put a dent in the problem. I worked undercover in that I did not wear a uniform or carry a badge and my authority was civilian so I only reported to Lees. The most taboo thing I witnessed that I was not allowed to do anything about was women, mothers, aunts, grandmothers, offering children for sex in exchange for cash. The truth of the matter is that, at least in Western society, the threshold of evidence required to hold women responsible for sex trafficking is not even in the same ballpark as for men. The number of cases we had to tolerate sickens me. I don't know which we need to address first as a society. The rampant abuse or the gender bias that keeps it going. But the truth be told, I met just as many women pimps and abusers as I did men. The biggest difference I could see is that women were more often pimping out the under 12 demographic vs. the male pimps that were pimping out the teens. I never saw one female prosecuted. But we were successful in moving a handful of kids to foster care. Worked as a private investigator for a while, mostly did work comp cases, seen some shiftiness, drug deals, etc. Worst thing was conducting surveillance on a person at an apartment complex. Get there before light to set up my rig. Little bit before sunrise this Mexican couple, 50s-ish, in a truck pull up in front of my position. Guy's pulling a trailer, gets out, rummage through dumpster for metal and stuff. Okay. Not so bad. Then the woman with him gets out and between my vehicle and said dumpster proceeds to pop a squat and sheet on the ground. Way to start my morning, guys. Thanks. Edit, spells good. Former loss prevention here, best job ever by the way. Witnessed so much sex in the Stark rooms. Couples. Singles. Trios. You name it. We had cameras everywhere of course. Especially in the Stark rooms due to rampant employee theft. We had countless hours of employee sex on tape. We couldn't reveal the cameras, which would tip off the thieves. So all we could do was watch. I used to training at a call center. I always included being aware of social engineering attempts in my role plays. Management liked this so much they started having me do this as a secret caller. I hate to say but I got a lot more people than I should have. Even started doing it ad hoc for other divisions when word got round. Worst was an agent that I'm not sure if she really just didn't care or was just so overly helpful she didn't think twice. But man, I could have stolen 3 or 4 people identities if I was actually running a scam. Couple showed up to a party with their kids. Boy about 11. Girl around 9. Get paid by host. Have kids do it with each other for entertainment of some of the people present. For further tips let a couple sickers join in after a few minutes. Kids have been safely wards of the state for several years now for your information. Pretty late to the party. But I was an undercover assets protection specialist at Target for a year in my early 20s. The main taboo thing I noticed and one of the reasons I wound up hating it and ultimately quitting is the whole security industry is racist as duck. Everyone from the uniformed guards at the door to the police that did the arrests. We had policies in place to prevent targeting minorities. But it didn't do anything. Nearly every time we called the police to arrest a black person, they would at minimum get tackled. Even if they weren't resisting. We had one white guy who was addicted to heroin that we had caught stealing video games several times. And had even punched my boss. And he was arrested so gently you would have thought he was made of porcelain. That job wore on my soul. For real. I finally have one. I was JTF6 and we covertly patrolled for drug harvesting activity, aka drug plots. My partner and I had eyes on this one location. We had to observe them for a period of time to generate a decent salute report. We see this wild as road warrior oogla looking kid come hauling us up on his dirt bike with who we thought was his mom or grandma. Then we witnessed some incestuous or at the very least underage relations by the feral kid and the she beastie brought with him. The whole time we're just sitting there in our hide grossed out and unable to move or intervene or we'd blow our cover and the whole op. I was working a detail a few years back in the Parks district of our county. We've had complaints and issues with men engaged in sexual activity in vehicles and restrooms. I volunteered to be a decoy with a wire to see if the issue was out of hand. I was hanging out in my vehicle and decided to go near the men's restroom for a bit. It wasn't long when a vehicle with out of county plates parked, an elderly gentleman driving. I kept my position at the restroom entrance when he walked up. I could tell he wasn't there to use the restroom. He chose the first stall and acted as if he had to urinate, then I heard it. He was masturbating pretty vigorously and the sound was awful. He leaned back out of the stall to see if I was still there. I wanted to get the hell out of there. The look on his face. Licking his lips with drool running down his chin. I'm not quite clear of the conversation but he either finished or lost interest. As he was walking out of the restroom he reached out and grabbed my twig and berries. I froze. Was shocked and didn't know what to do from there. My partners were in our enclosed garage watching and listening to the entire thing. After running this guy's information, it came back the car belonged to a diocese out of Dayton, Ohio and the elderly male was the priest. I never volunteered for that sheet again. Edit spelling. I made my partner blow me. Well, not exactly, but we were on a midnight following a burglary team. We were sitting in our unmarked auto in an alleyway when they made us. I had no other play except to grab Richie by the back of the head and shove it into my lap. One of the team comes up to the car, says something unfortunate about our assumed sexualities and proceeded to knock the place over. These guys were in the cells all night screaming that we were blowing each other. The bad guys went away for a little while. I got to write the most epic report in the history of policing and Mike got a medal for blowing me. Nice. Saw bored adults wanting to give Drugas to little kids to see what they would do while high. Couldn't intervene legally but was able to use normal social discouragement and shaming to stop them. Specifically, there was one girl who thought it would be hilarious to get a little kid high. The kid was probably about 10 or 11. Exactly the age you should never be doing Drugas. She seemed really oddly excited about it. Like it was the best idea in the world or the most exciting thing she had ever come up with. And the other guy with her just wanted to appease her to get in her pants, or had no morals. Or whatever, so nobody in this group of people thought to stop it or say no. Come on, except me. Some things are just wrong. I don't really have anything against adults using Drugas personally, but giving them to young kids is about the most trashy thing you could do. Worked undercover for the council at age 16. Basically had to go to bars and hotels to use their cigarette machines. One hotel from all the towns we visited stopped me from buying cigarettes underage. The reason they caught me was because the machine was not plugged in. You'd think that in a premises where alcohol is served, they'd be aware about asking for ID to young people. Pie here. Was in a shitty neighborhood and saw a guy beat his girlfriend pretty badly. Made an anonymous tip to the police, but they got their way too late and the GF ended up going back to the guy anyway. I watched an 8-year-old boy get punched in the face by his mother who was about to sell me an ounce of MJ. We waited as long as we could to not burn the CI. Then locked her up on both charges even though I wanted to bash her face in right there. I work in compliance for factories in Asia. The main focus of my job is to make sure the factories are following rules set by who contacts them to make something. I let a group of about 30 work overtime after they all stood outside my office asking why I am not allowing them to make more money before the upcoming holiday. Worked for a company that done inventory, point of sale sales and other food related software. Seen number of things happen in hotel and hospital kitchens that should have those places shut down. All being very high-end clients also. Since then I've never eaten food from a hotel. And if I'm ever in a hospital I'm refusing that also. That was the Riviera Casino here sadly. I used to clean kitchens at Disneyland for my last job. And holy hell. The amount of grease crud buildup in the steakhouse kitchen was definitely not as a result of the building being closed for a while result of the fixture sale. Build up like that takes time between all the equipment. Surprised it didn't catch fire.